greater than what I have protected with my life and my faith.
Her faith will never let this light pass. Not even you believed in her.
Alright, let's be real. Pixel art isn't all cute mushrooms and cheerful chiptunes, although it may seem like that for the most part. But sometimes it's buckets of blood, grotesque monsters, and deaths so nasty you'll wince even in 16-bit. Today, we are diving into the 12 most violent and brutal pixel art games you should play in 2025. I'm talking about the kind of games that make you double-check if your monitor is dripping. So brace your stomach, and let's step into the pixelated carnage together. You've been warned. Hotline Miami. Let's kick this list off with a game that pretty much set the standard for pixelated carnage. Released in 2012 by Swedish duo Dennerton Games, Jonathan Söderström handling the coding and narrative, while Dennis Wedin crafted the visuals, this top-down shooter became an instant cult classic. I still remember the first time I tried it. The mix of hypnotic synthwave music and sudden bursts of ultra-violence had me hooked within minutes. The premise throws you into Miami, 1989, playing as the fan named Jacket. Strange phone calls send him on missions against the Russian mafia, and the result is pure massacre. Across 19 chapters, you'll bash skulls with doors, carve enemies with blades, and unload shotguns in tight hallways where one wrong step ends you instantly. And yes, every kill can be finished with a brutal execution if the first hit doesn't do the job. The actual curveball comes from animal masks you wear before every mission, which grant different perks like faster executions or expanded vision. Add in a story that spirals into surreal hallucinations and conspiracies, and you've got one of the most influential indies ever. Available across PC, PlayStation, Switch, and Xbox, it's essential brutal gaming. Katana Zero. Sticking with Devolver Digital, but swapping colourful guns for razor-sharp steel, we land on a game that slices its way into your memory with one clean strike. Developed almost entirely by Justin Stander, under the ASCIIsoft name, Katana Zero launched in April 2019 after 6 long years of development. I remember thinking it felt like Hotline Miami's spiritual cousin, but with swords, time manipulation, and a storyline that's way more twisted. You play as Subject Zero, an amnesiac assassin working for a shady psychiatrist who hands out contracts alongside a mind-altering drug called Kronos. Every mission plays like Zero foresees the outcome. So when you die, and you will, a lot, it rewinds like a failed prediction. Enemies, just like you, die in a single hit, so levels become a bloody puzzle of wall kicks, thrown lamps, and perfectly timed sword slashes. Bullet time slow-mo lets you deflect gunfire back at enemies, which never stops feeling brutal. Beyond the violence, the story takes a darker turn with psychological horror, moral choices in dialogue trees, and a haunting cliffhanger ending. Available on Switch, PC, Xbox, and now even Netflix's mobile lineup, Katana Zero proves that stylish ultra-violence can be just as effective with a katana as it is with a shotgun.
There is something greater than the Mother Church, greater than the miracle.
Blasphemous. Now, if Hotline Miami and Katana Zero were about fast-paced ultra-violence, this one slows things down and drenches it in religious horror. Released in 2019 after a successful Kickstarter, Blasphemous was crafted by Spanish studio The Game Kitchen and published by Team 17. I've got to say, I was floored by how it combines Metroidvania exploration with punishing combat. all wrapped in grotesque, Catholic-inspired imagery that makes every boss fight feel like a twisted painting. The game is set in Civistodia, a plague-stricken land defined by extreme religious fervor, penitence and suffering under a mysterious force called the miracle you play as the penitent one, the last survivor of the Brotherhood of the Silent Sorrow. Silent, faceless, and carrying the spiked sword mea culpa, he trudges across Civistodia, a land warped by the supernatural force called the Miracle. Enemies aren't cannon fodder here. They're cursed, deformed figures of suffering, with attack patterns you need to master. Parrying at the right moment leaves them wide open for devastating counterattacks, some ending in brutal execution animations. Exploration rewards you with upgrades, new abilities, relics, and side quests, while checkpoints double as shrines that resurrect every enemy you just killed. Story-wise, it's a pilgrimage full of guilt, suffering, and horrifying religious symbolism, leading to multiple endings. Available on PC, Switch, PlayStation, Xbox, and even Amazon Luna, it's one of the most violent yet haunting pixel art experiences ever made. Ruiner. Jumping forward into 2091, we're dropped straight into the cyberpunk sprawl of Rengkok, a metropolis run by a megacorp called Heaven. You take control of a masked, silent protagonist nicknamed Puppy, who slices and blasts his way through psychotic gangs, mercenary armies, and grotesque cybernetic bosses while chasing the lie that his brother's been kidnapped. By the end, the story twists into betrayal, hacking conspiracies, and the brutal revelation that Puppy himself was nothing more than a pawn. And man, I gotta tell you this, the dark ending really hits. From a gameplay standpoint, this is a twin-stick isometric shooter that thrives on speed and aggression. You'll chain together dodges, melee strikes, energy shields, and rapid-fire weapons in chaotic arenas where a single mistake can leave you overwhelmed. The bosses stand out. Nerve with his Katana duel, the grotesque Traffic King in his mechanized shell, and the twin cyborg sisters, Geminus. The fights push you to adapt, and every takedown feels viciously satisfying. Ruiner was the debut project of Polish studio Rykon Games, backed by Devolver Digital, and launched in September 2017 on PC, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One, later hitting Switch in 2020. Stylish, violent, and absolutely unforgiving, it's a cyberpunk nightmare worth revisiting. Broforce. This one didn't start as a blockbuster, but it was literally born from a 2012 Ludum Dare game jam, where Free Lives submitted Rambros as a tiny side project. The idea exploded into a full game after players loved its mix of chaotic gunplay and parody action heroes. By October 2015, with Devolver Digital publishing, Broforce had turned into a full release on PC, later blasting its way to PS4, Switch, and eventually Xbox One in 2023. I still laugh at how much destruction you can cause with just a couple of button presses. At its core, you're dropped in as one of dozens of bros, parodies of 80s and 90s movie icons like Rambro, the Brominator, and even a Ripley-inspired flamethrower bro. The catch is, you never know which hero you'll be controlling next. Rescue a prisoner of war or die mid-level, and you instantly switch to a new character with unique weapons and abilities. The goal is to blast terrorists, topple devils, and escape via helicopter as the entire stage explodes behind you. The destructible environments make every firefight unpredictable, and trust me, half the time you'll kill yourself by accident. With expansions like the Expendabros and the massive Broforce Forever update in 2023, this run-and-gun parody hasn't stopped adding new chaos. It's violent, hilarious, and endlessly replayable. Death trash. Few pixel art games hit as weird and violent as this one. We're talking about cosmic horrors, mutant flesh gods, and punks with shotguns all colliding in a post-apocalyptic wasteland. That's the daily life on Nexus, the ruined planet you're thrown into. You play as an outcast, burdened with a strange affliction. Gameplay gives us real-time combat with old-school RPG freedom. You can unload shotguns into mutant machines, hack through monsters with melee weapons, or sneak around if you'd rather play it stealthy. The game doesn't pull punches. One moment you're pickpocketing drifters, the next you're puking as an actual mechanic to distract enemies. That mix of ranged and melee chaos, plus player freedom to kill everyone or kill no one, makes it brutally flexible. Created by developer Crafting Legends, Death Trash first landed in early access in 2021. It features handcrafted levels, branching dialogue, and even local co-op where a second player can join the campaign. With its fleshy horror, some punk attitude, and the violent sandbox design, this one stands out as one of the nastiest, most unique takes on pixel art brutality. Dead Cells. This one comes from France's Motion Twin, and I think I remember being surprised when I first learned it began as a follow-up idea to their old browser game Die Tonight. Instead of co-op survival, they pivoted into a hardcore single-player action roguelike, and it paid off big time. Released in 2018, Dead Cells mixes Metroidvania exploration with roguelike permadeath in a way that's as punishing as it is addictive. You play as the prisoner, basically a headless blob of goo that takes over corpses. The goal? Escape a plague-ridden island and take down its corrupted king. But the real hook is the brutality of the loop. Die once, and you lose all weapons, loot, and upgrades collected during that run, except for a few permanent unlocks you buy with cells dropped by enemies. Combat is fast and merciless, with weapons ranging from swords and bows to traps and shields, plus dodge rolls and ground slams that can stun enemies. It's got that Dark Souls feel, where learning attack patterns is the only way to survive. Since launch, Dead Cells has seen multiple expansions, Rise of the Giant, Queen and the Sea, and it's on everything, PC, consoles and mobile. 5 million copies sold later, it's still one of the most brutally rewarding pixel art games out there. Hotline Miami 2, wrong number. What actually started as planned DLC for the first game snowballed into a full-blown sequel. And by 2015, Dennerton Games and Devolver Digital dropped the final entry in the series. I mean, its delay from E3 2013 to release seems justified. It was clear the devs were cramming in every unused idea from the original. The result? Bigger maps, more characters, and even more chaotic bloodshed. Instead of sticking with Jacket, you cycle between a whole roster. A commando squad in 1985 Hawaii, 50 Blessings operatives, a sadistic actor, a corrupt cop, the Russian mob's heir, and even a group of violent copycat fans. Some can dual-wield, dodge, or go non-lethal, while others are stuck with masks that define how they play. The violence stays true to the one-hit kill formula. You die instantly, but so do enemies. Larger rooms with more enemies crank up the brutality, forcing non-stop experimentation until you carve your way through. The story sprawls across multiple timelines, before, during and after the first game, leading to nuclear war and Miami's obliteration. Released on PC, Linux, PS3, PS4, Vita, and later Switch, Xbox, Stadia, and PS5. It cemented Hotline Miami as one of the most violent indie duologies ever made. Hyperlight Drifter. This one's proof that Kickstarter dreams can actually deliver. Alex Preston launched the campaign in 2013, asking for just $27K. He wound up raising over $600K, expanding the vision and hiring more devs, musicians and artists under the studio name Heart Machine. By March 2016, Hyperlight Drifter landed on PC, and I remember the buzz. This was the closest anyone had come to making a modern SNES-era masterpiece, only much darker and more brutal. Gameplay revolves around the Drifter, a lone wanderer armed with a hard-light sword and futuristic tech in a decayed, mysterious world. Combat is fast and ruthless. You'll slash through swarms of monsters, time dashes to avoid being shredded, and carefully juggle limited ammo that only recharges when you land sword hits. Enemies come at you in vicious numbers, and one slip-up can end your run. It doesn't have gore for shock value, but the brutality is baked into the difficulty. It punishes mistakes hard, just like the classics it pays homage to. The story is told without words, only visuals and music. The Drifter's terminal illness, inspired by Preston's own health struggles, gives every fight a desperate edge. Since release, it's hit PlayStation, Xbox, Switch, and even mobile, with a special edition adding new content. It's a hauntingly violent journey in pixel art form. Enter the Gungeon. If there's one pixel art game that taught me how many bullets can fit on a single screen, it's this one. Enter the Gungeon is a bullet hell dungeon crawler, where survival means dodge, rolling through literal carpets of projectiles and flipping tables just to stay alive. Every run drops you deeper into the Gungeon's labyrinth, battling waves of gundead, enemies who are equal parts hilarious and deadly, and bosses that fill the screen with insane bullet patterns. The premise is simple. Every hero is haunted by their past, and the Gungeon supposedly holds the ultimate treasure, a gun that can kill the past itself. So whether you're blasting through mobs solo or teaming up in co-op, every run feels like a desperate, over-the-top gunfight for redemption. Weapons aren't limited to rifles or pistols either. I've had runs where my arsenal included bee-launchers, rainbow beams, and fish-shooting guns. It's absurd, violent, and addictive. Developed by Dodge Roll and published by Devolver Digital, it first dropped in 2016 on PC and consoles, later hitting Switch and mobile. Its success spawned Exit the Gungeon and, as announced, Enter the Gungeon 2 coming in 2026. This one's a must-play for anyone who loves chaotic, pixelated destruction. The Binding of Isaac Rebirth. Few games hit harder with unsettling themes than this one. You're Isaac, a terrified child who flees into his basement after his fanatically religious mother hears a voice from above telling her to sacrifice him. What follows isn't just survival, though. It's a nightmarish descent through dungeons filled with grotesque monsters, all fought with Isaac's own tears as projectiles. I mean, I still remember the first time I played it, and the first mum fight, and the sheer shock of how far this game pushes biblical horror into pure brutality. Gameplay is top-down, roguelike chaos. Every run generates new rooms, bosses, and items. Isaac can pick up bombs, keys, coins, and hundreds of bizarre items that not only alter stats, but also change his appearance, sometimes grotesquely. The real hook is the item synergies. Combine the right pickups, and suddenly Isaac's crying blood lasers that wipe entire rooms, or spawning companions that do the killing for him. But die once, and it's back to square one. Runs can end in anything from facing Mum's heart to battling Mega Satan or even the Beast, depending on your progress and expansions. Originally a 2011 Flash game, Edmund Macmillan rebuilt it with Nicalis in 2014 as Rebirth. It's since had huge expansions like Afterbirth and Repentance, plus co-op up to 4 players, and even online multiplayer in 2024. Available on PC, consoles and mobile, it's one of the darkest, most violently creative roguelikes ever made. Holstin. Moving from one bloody nightmare to another, we now find ourselves in Gungeon, Colonia, a quiet Polish town that in 1992 turned into something out of a fever dream. This is the last place your friend Bartek was seen. And if the streets covered in slime, decaying wildlife, and townsfolk slipping into madness are anything to go by, he probably didn't leave by choice. Your mission is to follow his trail and try not to lose your mind in the process. The gameplay pulls no punches. Supplies are rare, weapons feel desperate, and every corner you turn could reveal a monstrosity born from rot and despair. You're not a hardened soldier here, just someone trying to survive, which makes each encounter terrifyingly brutal. I like how the game forces you to not only fight, but also deal with broken locals, people who answer questions with riddles or lash out under their crumbling sanity. Survival here is more about patience and nerve. Developed with a custom engine and a release date, still marked as to be announced, this is one to wishlist if you're craving more pixelated brutality. And that's 12 pixel-drenched nightmares that prove blood sprays just as well in chunky pixels as in 4K. I hope you had as much fun as I did walking through this list of absolute mayhem. But hey, did I miss your favorite blood-soaked gem? Or is there a violent indie out there that deserves a shout? Drop your pics in the comments. I'm genuinely curious what you're playing. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe, so we can keep diving into gaming's darker corners together.